Norma. Norma. Vuélvete.
Vete de una puta vez, anda.
I don't know when the last time I saw a film I really hated was, but a few weeks ago I went to see The Skin I Live In, which is a Spanish melodramatic science fiction film from 2011 directed by Pedro Almodovar. I chose to see the film on a whim because the director's name rang a bell and I was curious about what the film was about. To give you a bit of context, before going to the theater, I was really hungry and didn't have any time to eat, so I had to choose between going home and going to the theater. As it turns out, I should have gone home. I really should have gone home, but I didn't. And now I am going to tell you why I should have. But before I do that, I'm going to start by giving you a summary of the film's plot, and I'd like to issue the following trigger warnings before I do. There's going to be mention of physical violence, sexual assault, and suicide. Afterwards, I'll let you know what made this film just so despicable to me. At the beginning of the film, we meet a beautiful young woman named Vera who is being held captive by a prolific plastic surgeon named Dr. Roberto Ledgard. He aims to develop a skin that resists burns and uses Vera as a guinea pig in order to do so. One day, while Roberto is absent, Zeka, a man dressed like a tiger, comes by to visit his mother Marilia, who works for Roberto. Zeka seeks shelter because the police are looking for him and convinces Marilia to let him stay at the mansion. Zeka notices Vera on a monitor and grossly licks it after stating she looks uncannily like Roberto's late wife named Gal. He then ties his mother up, forces her to show him the key to Vera's room, and goes on to sexually assault Vera. Upon Roberto's return, Zeka is shot dead while he's still on top of Vera. And while Roberto disposes of Zeka's body, Vera has a conversation with Marilia in which she learns that Roberto's late wife used to have an affair with Zeka. The two actually decided to run away, but were caught in a car accident and then a fire. Zeka managed to run away, but Gal was so severely burned she almost didn't make it. Roberto managed to nurse her back to life, but one day she caught her own reflection in a window and chose to die by suicide. She leapt outside the window and landed in front of her daughter, Norma, who greatly suffered from the psychological repercussions of the event. Norma is later on sexually assaulted at a party by a young man named Vincente. Roberto sees him fleeing the scene as he goes on looking for his daughter. He then finds her passed out under a tree, and when he wakes her up, she unfortunately processes him to be her assaulter and becomes scared of him from there on out. While she's hospitalized at a psych ward, she ends up dying the same way her mother did. Roberto decides to avenge his daughter's death by kidnapping Vincente. After kidnapping him, Dr. Ledgard tortures him and ends up performing a series of sex reassignment surgeries on him, starting with a vaginoplasty. He oddly turns him into the spitting image of his late wife and keeps him trapped in a room adjacent to his. Back in the present, Vincente, who is now called Vera, is grateful to have been saved from Zecca by Roberto and no longer shows any desire to escape. She instead suggests they should be a couple, and Roberto lowers his guard. Fast forward, Vera ends up murdering both Roberto and Marilia and returning to her mother's shop, where she reveals that she, in fact, is Vincente. Where do I begin? This is by far the most vile film I have subjected myself to in a long time. And that is because of two things. First of all, to me, it seems like nothing but trauma porn. There is a lot of violence in the movie, and the scenes, including sexual assault, are graphic beyond necessity. I personally do not understand the need to depict such violence on screen in order to get a point across, and I'll never be able to condone it. The point of good art is to make us feel and lead us into territories we wouldn't necessarily go into were we not led into them. Good art is meant to challenge our beliefs and morals. At best, it enables us to engage more critically with the things we consume, but at worst, it simply desensitizes us to terrible things. We cannot understate the power of images to mold us into better or worse individuals based on the messaging they sell. The repercussions this kind of imagery can have on our brains on a long term basis are harrowing. One of cinema's golden rules of thumb is show, don't tell. But I don't believe it applies to such violence. I'll never be able to justify cheap shock value because we truthfully just do not need to see it. Second of all, I truly hate the way the film pathologizes the female condition. Roberto's goal was to inflict suffering onto Vincente, so he thought about the worst thing anyone could be and decided it was a woman. Yeah, his insanity goes further than I could ever imagine because he chose to make Vera, well, Vincente at the time, his wife's spitting image. So if you were to put it all together, it goes like this. He kidnaps his daughter's rapist, only to turn him into his wife's doppelganger, and then initiates a sexual relationship with him as an act of final domination. I personally refuse to believe Roberto's actions were motivated by love and vengeance because if that were the case, well, I think he would have killed Vincente a long time ago. I think he is instead motivated by a twisted desire to reproduce violent patriarchal dynamics on a being he perceives to be weaker than him, because that is his birthright as a man. Overall, from Zeka's assault on Vera to Roberto's sexual relationship with Vera, without forgetting Vincente's assault on Norma, women are constantly objectified and depicted as powerless beings who unfortunately have to exist at the mercy of men. Almodovar turns these women's suffering into a spectacle by depicting graphic scenes of violence on screen and allowing the audience to engage voyeuristically with what it's seeing. I think that sort of approach only reinforces harmful existing stereotypes about women, and it has dangerously real ramifications. I wish I could engage with this film from a purely artistic point of view, but I simply cannot. Now that I've taken a step back, I can see some of the ways in which it's positively challenging, but overall, I still believe that it does more harm than good. And for that reason, I couldn't possibly recommend it. Now, that's only my opinion. If you've seen the film, I'd love to know what you think about it, and if there's any other movie out there that you think everyone should avoid. All right, thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.